Thank you for listening to the Content Magazine podcast, Conversations with Silicon Valley's Creatives, published by SV Creates.
Welcome to the Content Magazine podcast. My name is David Valdespino. I'm the executive editor of Content Magazine, and today we're in our Sofa Studio podcast with local artist turned international artist, mixed media artist, former creative ambassador for the city of San Jose. Did I miss anything? Muralist, printmaker.
All of the above.
Featured in the autumn 2020 issue of Content Magazine. We're here with Rayos Magos.
Rayos Magos, what up, San Jose? Yeah, man, good to be here.
Dude, I really appreciate you coming out.
Make it happen.
Yeah. So you've been in the mag a couple times.
Yes.
Right? So 2020, and then with your creative ambassadorship as well. Mm-hmm. Was there, a lot's changed since both of those things.
The photo alone, I've grown more beard hair, more, head hair. I look like a different person,
Yeah.
I look like I was malnourished in that photo. I don't know what,
Well, let's zoom it all the way back.
Okay.
Because before any of that, you're San Jose native, San Jose born and raised. I've met your parents; they're great people.
This is, Go Raiders.
What was Go Raiders? What was it like growing up in San Jose for a young Ray?
Yeah. So I grew up on the west side of town, off of Park and Race Street. So Race runs parallel. Park runs parallel with San Carlos, so I grew up right there.
Yeah.
It was a tiny street, Rainier Street. We lived in a duplex apartment, and it was my young parents and me and my brother. I grew up, I was one of those kids that grew up, playing outside in the streets, which I think nowadays is kind of rare. And we had a bunch of neighborhood friends that we grew up with too, playing, touch football, everything, basketball. We had basketball tournaments, in the driveway, so I grew up being outdoors, which was nice. And I think I've been making art my whole life, even during that time. I was always drawing, my parents would take me to their work, and I would be waiting for them to get off, and I would just be sketching through, a bunch of stacks of just, printer paper or something,
Yeah. And those are kind of times and experiences that you've kind of been, referencing in your latest work. I know, in 2020 when we were doing this, it was a lot of printmaking for you. Since then, the mixed media has kind of expanded in a lot of ways. You've done a lot of fabric stuff. We saw some paintings at your last one, which you actually were doing paintings the whole time. Your studio is actually really awesome. But yeah, so I'm curious, what now, and looking back on those times, since we're kind of talking about those at the same time here, what has that experience been like, investigating your youth through your artwork?
I think it's fascinating because sometimes I think for the longest time I made art as just a function for my own life journey and coping, and I was a very introverted kid, so I think that art was just always a go-to for me to avoid, eye contact or conversations with people, kind of like we're doing today. I think it's evolved because for the longest time I didn't study art. I actually was very shy to even call myself an artist for the longest time, even in college. I was gonna do graphic design, didn't go that route. I didn't like a lot of the, critiques in taking fine art classes and stuff, and so I kind of went a different route. So that also was kind of a part of my story where I kind of was in junior college just searching for what I wanted to do or be.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I really aligned with writing, so I tried journalism, transferred up to SF State, realized that I was a really shy person and I didn't like talking to strangers, and that was the first semester there at SF State. Moving away from family and friends. I was 19, I think. And having to interview people at one of the Muni stops in San Francisco was so challenging, for an introverted person. And so I think I realized that I didn't like that style of writing or just talking to people, and I went a way different route, did psychology for the rest of my graduate school experience.
Yeah, and that was even up through 2020, 2021 is kind of when you left the 9 to 5 behind and started doing art
21,
full time.
I left it, yeah.
But you were doing psychology stuff at the intersection of
Mixed
art
into it, yeah.
as well. You kind of talked about being an introvert and kind of having those
nobody believes me.
experiences,
Yeah.
and that. But did that play into you studying psychology and that?
I think so. I think naturally people have always just come to me for advice or kind of just counseling. So I think naturally that was just kind of something I was good at. Just an observer. I think that's where the tie-in between art and psychology is. It's a lot of observation. It's a lot of reflection on self, on others. So I think that was a big part of my journey.
Yeah.
And I think, as I got older, I just realized I don't need to be afraid of, talking to people or, I guess I'm okay with rejection more now than I ever was,
Yeah.
But I think it's in regards to the art stuff and kind of go back to the initial question around childhood and nostalgia and memories. It's like, as I get older, it's like I think of those times as like the golden years where I could just live in like a creative space and not have to worry about paying bills or rent or those kind of things that we have to deal with as adults. So I think that when I'm kind of going into those photo archives that my parents have in their basement, it's just like finding these magical moments like, oh man, like I remember this or I don't remember it, but I like the composition and I want to kind of remix it or play with it. And I think a lot of the kind of current work I'm doing is like a mix of like, childhood nostalgia, mix of like Mesoamerican mythology, symbology, and like contemporary like Chicano culture and things of that sort. So things around identity, around culture, I guess, is kind of a lot of the work I'm doing.
Yeah, it's photo boxes are fun. I mean, I definitely grew up with the shoe boxes hiding that nobody's looked at for a long time, and it's kind of fun piecing together those memories. Like you learn more about yourself looking through those things, which is cool.
It's funny too to find those like elementary school photos where like you would buy a packet, and so it's like you got like the wallet size up to like the big like 4x6 or 5x7s or whatever. It's just like wild because it's like, did my parents just like never give these out to family members? Like it's just wild to find all those photos, and it's like, why do we have so many photos?
They're
like,
all still packaged together.
It's wild. I mean, I literally like I want to do something with those. Like that might be my next art project, doing some mixed media stuff, or I don't know. It's like, it's there in the back of my mind, and it's all there, archived in the basement.
So, for somebody that kind of pursues multiple mediums, we talked about printmaking, we talked about murals and painting. How do you conceptualize the medium versus the message versus the inspiration, right? Because everything kind of starts with like an inspiration piece, but then how do you kind of parse where you want to take it?
That's a good question. I think, I traditionally started out drawing, that led to like painting. In college, I took a year's worth of like painting and drawing and mixed media at SF State because I had finished all my psychology units. So that kind of really got me on the trajectory of like, using different materials or thinking differently.
And had you taken art classes before that as well? Did you do high school art?
No,
Did you?
It's funny. It's like I went to Hoover Middle School, which had a performing arts, and I took some, I took like one, art class in 6th grade, and then maybe did like video, like film. And then I think in high school I took like digital media, and I was really into graffiti at the time.
Okay.
But never like, really like dove into it. Like art was just kind of a thing I did, and people, friends and people knew that like I was good at art, and they're like, oh, one day you're gonna be a famous artist. And I'm like, nah, like get out of here with that. And like I would literally sneak out of class and like go to like friends' art classes and just make some art and then leave, like that's the kind of, kid I was.
It was very Ray of you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm
just popping
I'm a
in.
magician. I pop in and out, and I think I'm just gonna start carrying like smoke with me, like and just like disappearing. But I think as I progressed with my art, I think working two-dimensionally or with just kind of one medium kind of gets I get bored with it. So it's like sometimes I like to push the boundaries of what I can do And sometimes that is like, yo, I'm gonna work with this fabric that I've never worked with before, and I'm gonna like push the boundaries, and I'm gonna learn how to sew, like, you know. So these are kind of some things that really have helped me push my practice. And then with printmaking too, like, I think I'm known here for printmaking, but I think most people don't know about like the other stuff that I do. And I think I learned printmaking actually in that college year. I took a class and like made some prints, and I think I've loved it ever since, just the graphic nature of it. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm curious too, like, you touch on, you know, themes around Chicano culture. You talked about Mesoamerican culture, you know, which is big San Jose vibes too, right? Like Chicano culture. But then you also talk, like, you reference pop culture in a lot of ways. Like I've seen the Cortezes, and I've seen, you know, what were kind of your artistic role models growing up as well? Like, did anybody in your family do art? I mean, graffiti kids usually like see other people doing graffiti and kind of get pulled over there. So I'm curious what that was like.
I think it was a combination of many things. I think, definitely my parents, I think on both sides of the family, there were artists and artistic people. You know, I think, so growing up, you know, my family would always buy me coloring books and you know, new crayons or markers like every year for my birthday, and that was like the thing that I was most excited about. Just about like video games, I got into video games a little later, but it was like the art materials and stuff that really kind of I was always inspired by. And then we had family members too that like were also artists and did graffiti, or you know, like they would make, you know, happy birthday banners for like family members, or art, you know, cards, or we would be, you know, doing coloring books together. So a lot of art influence. Again, I don't think I grew up in a family where it was like art was a career path and or like something that people did necessarily to survive or make money. It was always just like a hobby or like a form of expression for identity. And even like my paternal grandmother was, you know, an artist, a carpenter. She would make, you know, school desks or benches for us, or chairs, or like, you know, she would like make paintings and like wire them together, like very like a Mexican like MacGyver, like very like Jimmy Rig, like I'm, you know, whatever Rasquatch is, like the term too, like this idea of like taking something from nothing, from like the materials that you have. So that's like a very DIY, you know, style of art that I kind of grew up with. So yeah, kind of it's you know, fast forward to like me being a full-time artist is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting how creativity expresses itself in formats and cultures where it's not a full-time job. But it's also interesting for you, I just keep thinking of like the larger, you know, fabric work that you've done, the textile stuff that you've done, reflecting on your youth in that way. And it's almost doing like a very similar thing, right? Like somebody's birthday banner, but it's like the context is totally different, right? Because now we have this in a gallery, and now we have this like being created by a full-time artist. So
no, it was, and I think the images that I'm thinking of is the Makla show in 2022, and that was really cool because, you know, I'm always trying to push the boundaries. I think as an artist, like, sure, there's competition and you feel like the camaraderie with other artists and people around you, but I think my biggest opponent is myself, and so I'm always like pushing myself and seeing like how much I can stretch, you know, again, the materials I work with, or just like the size of the work or the texture of the work. And I think that one was a really like groundbreaking, like, oh wow, like, you know, I can do these sort of representational pieces, figurative pieces, but it doesn't have to be in paint. So that was really cool to explore, and I feel like I'm doing that maybe on like a smaller scale now. I have a really cool art piece in the Makla art auction. Go check it out. It's up now. Where I painted on canvas, cut it out, sewed it, and then added embroidery on top of it. So it's like, yeah, just always exploring different avenues of kind of similar themes or concepts.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious because this is kind of touching on multiple directions I want to go in the conversation, but it's kind of touching on the hustle culture that you've kind of talked about, which is also very Silicon Valley, which is also very San Jose, which is also very Chicano.
For sure.
But you're not living full time in San Jose anymore,
No, yeah,
right?
yeah,
So you, in the last, has it been a year already? But you since moved out to Toronto, Canada,
yeah.
which is
Only
like
4 months.
4 months.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
it feels
not a
like
year,
a
not a
year.
year, not a year.
I've aged for
And you-
sure.
and-
I've lived through a winter. Like it's crazy. Like,
And you've been back. You've been back quite a bit. Still,
Yeah,
you know that the whole hustle culture of getting
yeah.
stuff done,
Oh,
right?
man. Yeah.
But how are you feeling? It's been 4 months.
Feels like a year, but I get you. I get you. I feel
But
aged.
but how are you feeling that identity related to San Jose, transitioning to somewhere where it's like -5 degrees and snowing? I mean, y'all were bold for moving out there like in the middle of winter, but
I've just dove right in.
but how are you feeling it? On one hand, you know, the physical art that you're pursuing, but also mentally, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a big transition.
Yeah, I think the shift, it wasn't as stark of a contrast because we've been visiting. My partner's originally from there, so visiting like over the past few years and getting to know the arts community and build relationships with other artists doing, you know, really cool stuff out there, public murals. I mean, it feels like here in the sense of like people are also popping up and there's vendor events and art fairs and things of that sort. So it's kind of cool discovering all that. And also trying to find my place in that too, right? Because I'm not from there. And it's kind of like the Bay Area because a lot of folks also didn't grow up there or some did. Like, so it's a mix of that, like, you know, people coming from other countries immigrating. And so it's a good mix, a good inspiration. But yeah, I think I'm still trying to find my footing there just in terms of like, how do I show up and how do I, you know, share what's new or what's different with me there. And I think, yeah, I have a lot to offer. It's like, I have some things kind of coming up that I'll be doing out there, artist residency, you know, a show, things of that sort. So like I'm excited and juiced about it. And yeah, I feel like, yeah, I'm definitely a representative of like where I came from. And yeah, it's just an amalgamation of all these different moments in my life, which I don't know, like I recently had this revelation like during the new year. It was just like, especially when you look back at like old photos or like the magazine of me, it's just like we've all lived so many lives within our lifetimes, and all you have to do is look back at these archive of photos and it's just like, whoa, like I was a different person then. And so like that's how I feel now, like coming back to San Jose and like it's, you know, I lived 4 months through a winter and it's just like, this isn't cold. Like, you know, like it was San Jose day. It was like pouring rain in like my tent. I was like, well, at least it's not snow.
You're wearing
like,
a tank top.
It's cool, it's cool, like whatever, you know, it's like, but yeah, I think that hustle culture, like I realized like that's sort of maybe what sets me apart. I think some of my friends back there in Toronto are amazed just that like you know, haven't been there that long, but already I'm connecting and I'm like, you know, moving and shaking things up. And yeah, like I went to Mexico earlier in February for Art Week and I showed 5 paintings out there.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, like in Toronto, like I had a show that was up, like printmaking stuff for 2 weeks and I wasn't even at the show. Like, you know, it was just like, oh, like, you know, and so I don't know. I like being in multiple places and spaces.
Magician.
Yeah, that's the magician. That's the mago. Yeah, exactly.
What advice would you give to people? They kind of find them in that transitory period, because it's easy to not put yourself out there. And like you said, people look at you like, wow, I'm surprised that you're doing this. But like, what advice would you give to folks?
I think if you're really passionate about the work and your vision for things, like don't give up on it. I think you know, it's interesting how these things happen. It's like yesterday I was having these same kind of conversations mutually with other friends or artists. So it's kind of perfect like segue and theme into today. But I think, you know, one is like continue learning, investigating, and like, you know, building that skill set. I think a professor in the art department at SF State had always told us like, yo, like you can be like the dopest, you know, most talented artist, but if you're not working on it every day, then it might not go anywhere. Whereas like there's somebody that is maybe out there that's just working on it every day. Maybe they're not as good as that talented artist, but they're building it and they're working on it every day. It's kind of like going to the gym. So I see it that way too. It's like you got to just continue learning, taking classes, going to workshops, like, so I think that's like the skill set building. I think the other part is like the networking and showing up for other people's art shows and whether it's visual arts or music or dance or theater or whatever it is, just showing up and being a part of the creative community that you see and want to be a part of. I think that oftentimes when I'm out there and I'm meeting people or like I'm introducing people, I often think that everybody knows each other in the art scene. I'm like, oh, like you guys don't know each other? Like that's wild that like we've all existed in this kind of, universe together, like in the creative hub of like, the South Bay or even just the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoy that, like connecting people who might not know each other, or like, I love that part. Yeah, I love that part of like bridging and connecting people. I think I'm really good at that.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, like coming from being an introvert to like not wanting to talk to people.
Yeah, but in some ways you kind of know what people need in that sense too.
Yeah.
Like, takes one to know one type vibe, like that's
for
like,
sure.
and it's funny too, like when I said what advice would you have for folks, you kind of started with artistic discipline and practice,
yes.
but I was listening to that through the lens of like community building, and I think that it's still very relevant, right? Like it's something that you do need to work at every day.
Yeah, I think I got better at it because I lived outside of actually San Jose for 12 years.
Yeah.
So I lived in SF for undergrad, graduate school, 10 years, and then I moved to Mexico City for a few years, lived out there, and then when I was kind of done on that journey, I moved back to San Jose in 2015. So at that point, I still had friends and my family was here, but like I was kind of out of the scene. A lot of what had been already built during that time, and like just. Everything from local color to like, folks in Japantown that were doing stuff out there. I was just out of the loop, like I knew Empire 7 a little bit because I would go to their shows whenever I visit, but I was out of the loop. So I kind of had to reconnect with all of these cultural hubs here and kind of start from scratch and kind of put myself out there and be awkward and uncomfortable. But I think when I started doing that, then I was able to really kind of cement myself into the scene. And then, it's in those kind of networking situations too, people are always curious, like, what do you do? What do you make? So I think at that time I made a range of things, but like didn't know how to talk about it. And so I think that's another sort of suggestion or recommendation I would give to like other fellow artists that are kind of emerging or like trying to get more into the scene, is like start to really work on like your voice and like who are you and who's your audience and like what are you actually about? Because if you can't answer that question, then I can't. And then when you meet people, it's going to be like, well, what do you do? It's like, are you a painter? Are you what kind of paint do you paint with? Acrylic, oil? Like Are you a printmaker? What kind of prints do you make? So I think it's good to like know that language so that when you do network or meet with people, or you're kind of trying to show up at a gallery and like talk about your work, it's like you know what you're talking about, I guess.
Yeah, and in some ways I feel like you can build more meaningful connections as well, because if you know what you're interested in, and you're speaking that language and somebody that piques somebody's attention, then it kind of helps build those that mutual level of interest too.
It's a dialogue, it's a conversation.
Totally.
And I've learned this the hard way, just doing it. And I think some of the ways in which I've done it too is like giving out stickers to people. Like, I mean, how many stickers of mine do you have? Probably right on your water bottle or at your house, or you've gifted.
I think I save most of them. I have a nice sticker collection right now.
Yeah, I know. I have equally. Like I have friend stickers. I have like prints of friends and things of that sort. So I think that kind of like shameless self-promotion, like I think that is from the Bay Area. And also when I lived in Mexico for those years, like that's what I would see too, is like people like basically like are hustling. Like I guess LA is the same way, but like they're literally during peak traffic hour out on the freeways, like probably not good to breathe in all that smog and carbon monoxide, but they're out there like slanging chips, peanuts, cigarettes, like all like on the freeway, or like they're selling juices, like anything and everything, like and it was just inspiring. And I think even when I was there, I was studying Spanish and then also making art in the process. So it was nice. I would work part-time as an English teacher. I was studying Spanish. I was making art, right? So that was like, the thing I was always doing. And I remember I had made like some art for Day of the Dead and was gonna go outside on the streets and try to sell it. And I didn't. I freaked out and I was too shy about it, like worried about my Spanish and like how much did I sell this for. And then like as I kind of got more situated there, I actually got back into printmaking because it was just an easy material to work with and to pump out prints quickly. And like I would go pop up at the park and like try to sell prints and like people were getting like some really decent like prices, like 50, 60 pesos, which I think is like maybe $3-4. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're getting some nice prints, you know?
I love that.
But yeah, I think I learned some of that hustle both from the Bay and also from living in Mexico. So
Yeah. So we talked about where you grew up, where you've been, a little bit about where you're going, where you are. But so you spent that time in Toronto, but you're back. Obviously, you're in the Sofa Podcast studio right now. Yeah. But you've been back a couple times now too, right?
Only once before because, that was like migratory things with the Canadian government. So it's like...
Yeah, so there's like the government requirements of like, I don't know if it's visas or whatever that is, like how long you can stay versus how much you can come back. And then there's also like the working portion of it, right? Like you can't really work somewhere if you don't have the right allowances to do that. So you have some stuff that you're doing in San Jose currently. So what brought you back this time?
So I came back for a few teaching contracts. I've been doing this now full time since 2021. That's when I left, and it's now been 5 years because I think I ended my contract in March of 2021 as a community mental health therapist, and then it was April was the first month of like being self-employed, and it was just like, wow.
Happy anniversary.
It was like, okay, this is interesting. Like I don't have to wake up and go to work, but I think I'm such a worker hustler that like I think immediately I got into like a CCI boot camp where they taught you about art business, and it was a lot of like friends were on that too. It was all through Zoom, so that was cool. But so fast forward to now, do a lot of contract work and teaching. I've worked with junior high, high school students doing printmaking. So I came back for working with this organization, HomeFirst, which is also based here in San Jose in the South Bay, the ones that built the tiny homes. So I've been working with them probably for the past 4 years now. So they emailed me and they're like, yo, we heard you moved. Like, are you interested in like coming and teaching and working? Because I pretty much helped them build this program, which is called Home is Where the Art is. Yeah. And the first year, it was definitely a learning curve. Essentially like I go into the transitional housing units with the residents. It's open. And
this is, so HomeFirst works with unhoused community members, clients in some cases because they're actually working or like living in these developments that they've created.
Yes.
Is this the one that's on First Street as well? Do they run those casitas over there as well, or is it all over the city? Do they have multiple developments?
I think that a lot of the ones that they have are like off of the 101.
Okay.
There's multiple sites. The biggest one is at the end of San Jose border, Bernal Road.
Okay.
And that's on Rue Ferrari. And I went there when I got back recently to teach, and the space has expanded.
Yeah.
So I was gonna go out canvassing, knocking on doors, letting people know about the workshops, but like I barely touched like a quarter of that place, and I looked around and I was like, no way I can do all this and still have time to teach the class. So they've expanded and they're growing their programming, which is great. So essentially like they all the residents that are there are housed, right? And so the initial goal, I think, is to get folks off the streets, get them housed, help them get their basic needs met, which I think is super key. And then, so, adding the art and like with my background in expressive arts therapy, it's like, it's a good coupling of like, I'm not doing therapy with folks, but art is therapeutic. And if I, facilitate it in the right way, it's like people are able to sort of get out their stresses just from, having to just do the daily basic, needs and, things that they have to do to be stable,
And I imagine this, community, like the level of diversity of like people's situations and where they come from and how they've been here and where they're going and all of that stuff is so varied, right? Like people with children, people that are single, people. So you're working with like a whole community in and of itself.
Yeah, it's been beautiful. I mean, again, like, you know, because I've been doing it for the past 4 years and I've returned to some sites where like the residents know me. So like they come and like they'll, you know, make amazing work. And like the premise of the program is, you know, I go in, we learn different mediums throughout the time that I'm teaching. And then at the end of it with the art, they have like actual art show, an art auction. So that's been the beautiful part is like, to see the residents like show up to the art show and like now their art is getting bid on and it's getting sold and it's framed and it looks super professional. And I think last year was at Create TV, so open San Jose there. And it was a beautiful event. And you know, some of the residents came out and like they really had a great time. And you know, I think that's the kind of work that I enjoy is like the community stuff. Because again, it's just like, it's like real people and like they're like, that was like the most meaningful for them that maybe they have experienced in a long time. So it's just really nice to see that, that human spirit kind of light up again.
Totally.
You know? So.
Yeah, and do you have any kind of like memorable experience of folks with their kind of creative background? That's kind of how we started the conversation too, right? Is like how creativity expresses itself in different scenarios.
I can definitely think of a few stories where people were like, yo, like I grew up doing art as a kid, like I haven't done this since I was a kid. And that's often, you know, I think for adults, like for kids, really easy to tap into, jump into that creative side, their art side, that playfulness. I think as adults, just because of the requirements to be an adult and be stable and pay rent and all those things we mentioned, I think we kind of neglect that part as we get older. And I think that's the one thing that, you know, I still like hold on to or I really value in my life is that sense of playfulness and creating. And so I think that that's kind of what I'm really like working with people on is kind of coming back to that or at least feeding that childlike part of themselves, you know. And I think that that's the whenever, especially like with adults, whether it's workshops or like in these transitional housing spaces, you know, the moment you say art, like people like get real tight-lipped, like nervous, they like kind of leave the room or, you know, or they say, oh, like I can't draw a line.
It's like the kind of the first thing is I'm not a professional artist. I used to work in the bicycle industry and people would come into the shop and they'd be like, I'm not a pro bike racer. And it's like, no, you don't have to be. Let's have fun.
I think that's the thing, right? It's like, people get nervous with the word art or artist. Or, you know, because I think people have what I like to like call art trauma. Like, you know, like there was somewhere in that experience of being a kid where, you know, it got to a point where somebody was like, yo, this isn't good, or do something else because it's not going to make you money or what have you, right? So it's like, I think that that's sort of what, you know, I like to call it baggage, right? People, you know, we all have baggage and things we carry, and I think that that's one of them with art is like people, you know, see art as like you have to be a professional or you have to make money off of it rather than just being creative.
But this one is interesting too, though, because it does end in an exhibition. So like, how do you kind of navigate that as like the workshop teacher? You know, guide.
I think
because people are gonna see it. You know, it's just cool. Like it's awesome. Like that's like the dream of like doing creative things is that you can share it with others. But
I think that's the initial premise, and like that's what we explain to them. And I have just a very simple way of breaking it down for them because, you know, they're essentially giving us permission to take their image, their artwork, and put it up somewhere. So right off the bat, like they sign a contract and like if they're okay with it, we do it. If they're not okay with it and or they want to keep their artwork, we let them, right? And that's always a thing for me. In the beginning, I was teaching a lot of printmaking, and so I was like, yo, like keep some prints for you and then like donate the ones to us. And you know, the premise for it too is like 100% of the proceeds actually goes back to them. So that's also like another buy-in for them, not only to just make art, but also, you know, like you could potentially, you know, get the proceeds from this and also just go to a cool party and get some, you know, just get some love, you know, like some attention.
That community spirit and vibe there.
So I don't know, I think, Yeah, and that's why I think I keep coming back. Like that's the part I think, I was previously working in community mental health, and so I was doing that work. But this is kind of on my own terms and through the arts, which feels, more appropriate and feels more up my alley, So
I love that.
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so the next exhibition is going to be
June 1st, so that'll be I don't know if it's June 1st, but the first Friday of June.
First Friday of June.
And I think they're also at Open San Jose again.
okay. And we'll have all the info as well in the blog here, so everybody can
Yeah,
check it out.
So yeah, I think you all should go check it out if you're interested in volunteering or working with the organization. I know they're always open to that, down for that.
Yeah, when I talk to them, it's like art handlers, like folks that can like really do like the gallery stuff the day of as well. Like
I think because that's the thing is I think when we first started out that initial year, it was a very kind of trial and error,
Totally.
And just kind of like getting things together, very DIY, and then now it's kind of evolved, and yeah, I think that HomeFirst, they're good at what they do, so I think that the art part and the art hanging and stuff, like that's where I think that, like the arts community could kind of step up, and I think they want to have more of that collaboration and network. And even this year I was like, yo, like, did you guys like create a flyer? Like, again, this is my, like, again, I always say, like, if I got into marketing, I'd be an evil genius, and I think this is why I did it, because, but I got into psychology, and I know the psychology of it, so I was like, yo, you need to pop up at the May 1st Friday, like, you need to have a tent, like, you need to have information about the organization, you need to go flyering, and, like, stickers, and, like, doing the whole nine, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's how I, want to support them and, like, getting more eyes, more attention on the programming, because I think it's great, like, I wish that I could, like, or I wish that they could teach, longer throughout the year.
Totally.
Like, that would be my vision. Even if it's not me, like there's been other, like colleague, Shanti Nagawani, who also is an artist, and she also has come in and helped the past few years as another teacher. This year she wasn't able to, but, it's like my vision would that they tap into the creative sector here, the culture, have different artists come and teach the workshops. And that's basically like, saying like, hey, I'm handing off the reins, and like, I'm not here anymore physically, but maybe my presence or like my networking can help other people get involved. And
I love that.
Yeah.
It seems like the big takeaway is community here, and then how creativity expresses itself. Like it's not. Not one direction that you have to go with creativity and art. And I think the more, cross-sector intersectionality with art and kind of how we approach it, whether it's in our day-to-day lives, right? Like it's...
It makes a difference. I mean, I think it's the one thing in my life that's always been consistent, or like has helped me de-stress, or like just make sense of, my world or chaos or things that are happening, and, whether it's a good or bad day, it's like, like, I guess it's probably similar to like folks that, do martial arts. Like, I'm gonna take it out in the dojo, so it's like, I feel like that whenever I go into the studio or I make work, it's like, yo, if I'm having a rough day or whatever, like, I'm gonna like channel that through the art making. And sometimes I make, I know you wouldn't believe it, but like I make, not the best art, right? Like some of y'all don't see that, but it's like also just being okay with that too, that that's also life, and just, being able to adapt. So I think that's what it is for me, is like, I just want people to use the arts in whatever way, because I think that's why they've existed. It's for healing, it's for sharing, it's for building and connecting, and it's a language.
Yeah.
And I think that's...
I love that. Well, quick pivot here. You talk about studio practice. You talk about working. I know it's been snowing when you were up in Toronto.
Yeah.
What music have you been listening to? Anything good coming through the headphones?
That is a great question.
I know you're a big music connoisseur. You've put me onto some good stuff too.
Like, I mean, even if you just follow my like Instagram stories, like I'm just like finding like these rare like songs on there, and I'm like, ooh, I like this, and then I like deep dive. But yeah, I like making playlists. Like, I think, I've always wanted to be a DJ too. Like, that's another part of me. I think music has always been a part of my life, my arts practice. So there's just always music playing.
Yeah.
You know, all day, every day. It's rare that I sit in silence. I do. You know, I was an avid meditator for many years, and you know, my practice kind of waxes and wanes with that. But yeah, I listen to everything from, you know, cumbia, like old stuff, to new stuff, like psychedelic stuff, you know, rock, jazz. I'm a big jazz advocate. I love jazz. So yeah, just a lot of different things. I mean, some of the more like newer cumbia stuff, like Sonido Gallo Negro, the Meridian Brothers.
Yeah.
What else? It's a lot of things, man.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, you have to give us a link to one of your playlists. Maybe we
yes,
could throw it in the
yes.
blog
and
there too.
And I usually like play that. Like I'll play them tonight at my art workshop too.
Oh yeah. You've been
So,
doing art workshops as
yeah,
well too.
it's been good.
So you got to follow Ray on Instagram. Where can folks find you?
Rayos Magos on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook too. I have a LinkedIn. Don't use it as much, but I'm there too if you ever want to email me.
Yeah.
And then also I have a website. You can look it up, rayosmagos.com. And currently, like, my shop is kind of like on pause because, you know, I'm living in Canada now,
International
and so
shipping.
like shipping is kind of crazy. I've already shipped 2 art pieces that I've, like, you know, that have just been on like raw canvas rolled up, and I'll ship it in a tube. I had a piece in a show in Seattle, and then I shipped my current piece to Makla. So, you know, the shipping alone is, you know, kind of costly. So I'm like, you know, if a print is like $15, $20, like I wouldn't want somebody to pay like double for like the shipping. So I'm trying to figure that all out. You know? And I think that that's why I'm like, you know, popping up here too. Like I might even leave, you know, some prints here with my family or friends, and they could like ship it out for me or something. But I'm still trying to navigate that and figure that out right now.
I love it.
But
and other than that, you will probably not be in town for the opening for HomeFirst.
No, yeah, unfortunately.
But that'll be first Friday in
Yes,
June.
yeah.
Folks can go check out all the artwork
Yep.
that the community members with HomeFirst make.
Yeah,
So.
I'm excited. And I think I even like, you know, as part of it too, like I'm there also teaching, but I'm also making art.
Yeah.
And so I have some art I think that will be in the show. And again, like the proceeds will actually go back to the organization, because that's also my hope and goal is like, yo, like if you can sell some of my artwork and like continue programming, that to me is, you know, the idea or the vision. So.
Awesome. Well, Ray, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Content Magazine podcast. Follow us on social media at Content Mag. Become a member and help us to continue to tell the stories of the South Bay creatives. This episode's music is 408 by Jack Pavlina. Follow him on Spotify and also on his Instagram at Jack Pavlina Music.